All right. All right. Well, welcome everyone. We're glad to see everybody. This is a little bit of a supplemental meeting because I think we got a little bit in some weeds last week with some of the geometries, and I think that's just the nature of dealing with the geometries, is that they are very technical and a little bit complex. We're making some good progress on making that, if not less complex, at least more user-friendly, and we've got a little bit of an update on that today. But we're also going to be talking about some of the, I think, most important user features, like meeting mode and possibly setting up a secondary impact if you want, and then also looking at some of the analytics and actually what type of reporting you get, what the value is in terms of data from Balancing Act. So just once again, these are the four of us at Balancing Act that are supporting this project with ABAG. And feel free to reach out to us if you need anything, but we want this to once again be an interactive type of user group where we can learn from each other and talk to each other and hopefully solve problems together. The agenda for today is, as we've done the last couple of times, we're going to do just a couple of workshops. A couple of you, at least two of you, have indicated that you'd be willing to sort of talk about your experiences to date and show us what you're doing, and if there's an issue that you've run into, to sort of share that with us. And if we have a solution, we'll certainly share it with you. If we don't have a solution, we'll sort of put our thinking caps on and see if we can figure out something for you. Then we're going to give you an update on the geometries. That issue, as I said earlier, it continues to be complex, but we've got some ways forward on that. We're going to talk about meeting mode, and especially I think within the culture of planning. I think this is a really useful feature. It's a way to use the tool not just as a data input tool or a feedback tool, but actually a facilitation tool in a live session, either a face-to-face session or a Zoom session or an online session or a hybrid. I think it's a very useful tool for this type of use case. And then I'm also going to show you analytics. So after you've created your simulation and you've put it out into the wild for a bit, what type of information you can expect to have. And then we'll also touch upon sort of how that feeds into the report, although I think that's probably more a future session topic. And then we have another feature. It's not often used within Balancing Act, but I think it's actually a really nice feature, and it could be useful to some of you. So we're going to show it to you. It's called the impact feature. And after that, we're just going to talk about next steps. This is the last regularly scheduled of our sessions with this user group, but we'll sort of query you. We're going to use the polling feature of Zoom to get a sense of what you think would be useful moving forward, because we do want to make sure that you have the resources that you need to succeed. So if you haven't already, please use the name feature or the rename feature on Zoom to give your name and also to tell which jurisdictions that you're associated with. That can be very useful, especially for some of the consultants that are working with multiple jurisdictions. Okay, so before we go there, let's do just a couple of workshop-y type things, just to kind of get a sense of where people are. And so we had a couple of volunteers, but if there's additional of you that want to say something about where you are, then please do. Andy or Rachel, I think that one of you was going to talk a little bit about your experiences with Fairfax. You've got a fairly aggressive timetable. From what I understand, you're planning on going live in just a couple of days here. Maybe just tell us sort of what you've got going on and what you're experiencing. And I see that you just turned your camera on, Andy. Hello.
Hello. I also want to invite Rachel. I'm not sure if she's on at the moment. I'll start talking. And Rachel, if you're on, please chime in.
I am here, Andy, but the audio is a little loud in the background, so I'll let you take the lead.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Rachel has done the bulk of this work and has done a lot of heavy lifting with the GeoJSON files, and we're in it now, and we've got a community workshop this coming Saturday, and we've numbered them, and then of course you can you can see when we've got multiple parcels. For now, it's numbered in a multiple way, but people can actually see which ones relate to which numbers. We understand that soon there might be some division of color for when people decide to add housing. We know that that's a function that's available right now through density. In Fairfax, density is not part of the regulations. So it doesn't apply here, which is great from a land use planner perspective. Personally, they're on the forefront. So when we have the user calculate according to housing number for the potential housing locations. And you can see when you open it up within our information, we've worked closely with staff there. So we've got information about constraints and opportunities for each site. We've got that on our website, but we include a more an aerial so that they can a screenshot from a piece of an aerial so that people can understand which site we're talking about for each one. We also we definitely want to enable the opportunity for comments because we're looking forward to hearing back from people about what they think of each site. And we've worked closely with staff to make sure that that our number range is on point. So we've got ceilings and we've got floors and we've got it set for a certain amount of for a 25% rise in the number of housing units at each site. So we start at 0. We didn't want this to be complicated. We wanted to, you know, we recognize that there is more capacity than 0 at each of these sites, but what we're looking for is we're really wanting to know that community emotional reaction for each of these sites to get a feel for what sites might be more difficult or controversial, or others that might be a surprise. And maybe in the past it's been controversial, but you know we're definitely hearing some opinions more recently that are a little different than maybe what in the past. Now, yes, thank you for pointing that out. We also have options throughout the town. So we have the accessory dwelling units across town. And we already know the number most likely that HCD is going to accept, but we did bump this up to allow for people to go even beyond that. And we'll help explain that when we, maybe in the workshop, but certainly when we get feedback exported from this program and bring it back to the audience. Because if there is an appetite that's even bigger than what HCD would allow, then we want to pursue opportunities to increase that so that maybe we can see more than that minimum that HCD has us calculated in anticipation of this 8-year cycle. And then we also want to make sure that we have an opportunity right at the bottom there for a site that we may have missed throughout the process. Because with Cupertino, we're starting with, I like to call it a coloring book map, because we're able to, we don't have it parcel by parcel, thank goodness, but we have it in areas that they've already delineated as neighborhoods or special areas. And so we're starting with that very first, let's look at the entire city. In Fairfax, we've known from the beginning that most of the sites are going to be along the spine. Most of the sites are going to be commercial, but there already have been a few surprising opportunities, and we want to keep ourselves open to more surprising opportunities as we go forward.
Wow, this is looking great, Andy.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
We're totally open to any advice or ways to make this better. Yeah, and we're really excited to learn about how to bring this through in the workshop.
Okay, good. And that we'll talk, I think meeting mode might be useful for us, so we'll cover that today.
Awesome.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, other comments, questions for Andy about how they've set this up? Andy, once again, you know, you're kind of the fifth. This is sort of the fifth one that we've seen go forward. Actually, this is a new use, and I really like it. Just as options throughout town and putting ADUs in there. I think that's actually a really cool thing.
Thank you. Thank you. It's the team. We just keep brainstorming, you know,
Well,
think about what's,
Yeah, and that's why we're having you present this in a workshop setting so that you can share these ideas with everybody else. So this is terrific. Anybody have any comments about this or questions about how it's set up or how it works?
Well, I have one assumption that I think a lot of people might appreciate hearing. And that's that you might notice that we didn't include buffer.
Mhm.
That's a complicated land use. I mean, we'll get to that with the public and having a long discussion about it. But the other thing we're not including also is SB9 opportunities. And so far, what we've heard from the Turner study out of Berkeley is, sort of an assumption of about 9% houses, parcels may, property owners of parcels may pursue these options. And when we did some quick math in some of our communities, we realized, wow, this kind of equals what a buffer might be. So maybe we don't talk about either, because either one could easily hijack meetings. So that's our idea, is, well, let's leave them both off the table, because theoretically they kind of cancel each other out, and then we'll get to it later.
Yeah, and that concept of hijacking a meeting, I would bet that everyone on this call is familiar with that, where you end up talking about something that is maybe peripherally important and not the main subject, but that sucks up all the oxygen. So Andy, I think that's terrific in terms of not just building a simulation, but also thinking through the strategy of how this will engage people, how it can help focus the conversation, and get you some of the input that you're looking for. So before I've got a few things I would suggest, but I do want to let others ask questions or make comments themselves. Anybody? Okay. Well, one thing I noticed, Andy, is that, and I like the way that you've done this. By the way, I want to just point out to you another just minor feature that's sort of a usability feature that I think is kind of cool, that Dan always, our senior developer, he always kind of drops Easter eggs on our team meetings to say, hey, and I just did this. And so he added this little feature here. It's a little globe. And so the nice thing about this is that if you click on it, it'll actually take you right to the site. So if you click on it, it actually pulls that up and does a close-up on that. So that's kind of a nice little thing as well. And you guys are really, Fairfax is a tiny little town, so it's already at a pretty large scale, but yeah, it actually just kind of takes you right there in case people want to take a look. One thing I noticed is that, let's say that we're going down here and we're increasing these. You've got it set up, I think these are going up by increments of 25% of what you think the total capacity of the site is. And then you've got our maximum. So that's, we call it a hard ceiling. And it's great, but one thing just to point out to you is that you can actually customize this text. This is actually just kind of boilerplate text where it says, please confirm your change. But you might want to put in something explanatory there that just says, you've reached the maximum amount that this site can accommodate, something like that. And it's really easy to do. And I'm not going to show you today, but when Garrett was talking about the settings, it's really easy just to kind of click on the settings and go in and customize that message. One more thing that I noticed, this is kind of for everybody, this is like the last thing that everybody does, is that you can also add your logo, whether it's the town's logo or you're branding the planning process, for example. You can add that in the account settings for your account, and it's in the upper right hand corner by where your name appears, and you just plop it in there, and you can even put in a link if you want. Let's see, a couple other things I noticed, and I know that this is not a finished finished tool for you all, but just to point out that probably you're going to want to customize these entry screens, or turn them off if you don't want them at all, and you can customize just about anything in here. You can even customize where it says welcome to Balancing Act, and then you can also ask for this screen is typically where you would ask a question like, are you a resident, or whatever types of demographic information you want. This is also the place where you can have that drop a pin if you want people to show you kind of about where they live. In a place like Fairfax that's already pretty darn small, maybe that's not as relevant, but that's certainly something that you could do. Maybe I'll just ask the team, Garrett and Amy and Dan, if there's anything that you're seeing that might be sort of useful for them to think about adding or clarifying a little bit.
I think it looks really good. And you just mentioned the two things that I was kind of focused on, just simply just aesthetics in terms of adding the logo. So that's really easy to do. Like Chris just said, you just click on your account settings and upload that. And then the entry screen. So that's your opportunity to kind of maybe even get some more demographic questions that just helps the data that you bring in become even more detailed.
Yeah. And then
But
Andy,
it's
another
looking,
thing.
it's looking really good.
Yeah. Another thing that you might want to think about is that there's 2 places where you can put an optional text on balancing act. One is along the footer, so above, these little notes down here, and and that one goes across the entire page. And that's where I think it was Lafayette and Eastvale put in pictures of what density looks like, possibly a rendering of, a 2 or 3 story building or something like that. Once again, not a requirement, but just for you to think about. And so so there's a place to put in text right here, and then there's also a place to add text underneath the submit button. So if you wanted to say, oh, and by the way, thanks for providing input, and here's our process. We'll be working on this over the next 5 months, and multiple opportunities for you to provide input and to learn about the process and so forth. So once again, but the core tool is looking really good. Now, Andy, this is maybe a dangerous thing to do on a call with many people, but from what I understand, you've got a couple of there's a way you'd like the simulation to interact that it doesn't interact right now. Could you explain that? And we don't know if we have if there may be sort of it may actually be that we could configure it, using existing settings. It may be that it's something that we don't quite have, but if this is a broad spread request, why don't you just sort of share it with people?
Is this about the colors and the density?
Yeah,
exactly.
And so, sure, and I'll try to set this up really quick. So the way that it's working right now is that if you're not using density, the opacity of the color doesn't change. So it's still interactive. So if you click on it, it still will take you right to that area. So that's the limit of the interaction if you're not using density. But Andy, go ahead and sort of say what you kind of wished it would do if you could,
Sure.
had unlimited development resources.
Sure. We would love for it every time that you would hit the plus or minus button, that the color tone would increase or decrease according to the amount of housing, so that it would become a darker color or lighter color.
So if I'm understanding the math correctly, so since you've got these set up to increase, I'm going to reset this. You've got these set up to increase. So you're saying that White Hill School has a capacity of 80 units. And so you would like it if, when you click on this, that it would get 25% darker in terms of the color. This would be 50% darker and so forth, right? So it's almost like
so if you clicked on the map, that awesome new tool that we have available within that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So it would mean on the back end, we'd actually have to let you define a goal, which in this case would be 80, and then we'd have to find a way to have the shape darken at the increments you've set up, right?
Yes.
Okay. So
you've just reversed
okay. And so Dan, I don't want to put you on the spot, like with on-the-spot development, but do you have any thoughts about that? Or is there anything that using existing functionality that might be able to help? Or is this something that we just don't have right now?
We don't have it right now, but it doesn't seem like a heavy lift. Andy, would that max always be set as the ceiling for the subcategory like you've done there?
For each of these sites for this individual map? Yes, that is true. Yes.
Okay, so we could use that as kind of the goal and then calculate the opacity based off a percentage of that. So yeah, I think we could take a closer look at this. Do you need this by Saturday or more by December 9th?
This one by Saturday is Cupertino by December 9th. That's the one that, because the entire city is covered in shapes, it's kind of essential for those colors to pop a little bit.
Okay, let's talk about it a little more after this meeting and see. Saturday might be kind of hard to get ready for, but we can see what we can do. Thank
you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's a formula. So even if I'm understanding correctly, it sounds like you've got an idea for how we could sort of use the density portion, as long as it doesn't actually say density within our map. But there's a formula that we could apply to each of these. We can also carry that out. Just putting it out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, Andy, just to make things, well, to reflect the complexity of them, with Cupertino, so in this instance, you're asking for this interaction to be reflected on the color of this. With
Correct.
Cupertino, it's different. You're actually asking for this number, the total number up here, to be reflected on the shape, right? Because isn't it in Cupertino, aren't these, it's all rolled up, right?
No, actually, it's the very same thing. We're starting at 0 in Cupertino because, again, we're just wanting to know, as far as distribution of where the housing should go, we don't want to make any assumptions early in our process. So we're asking the whole of the community. For each site, we've got well, what we don't have there is we don't have ceilings. So we're allowing each site to be raised either by 2% of the total or 5%.
Okay, and that was sort of my point, is that as we're doing development, we actually need to be very specific about, is this exactly the same interaction? And I think it's not.
You're right. You're right.
So I think it's an additional type of request. So we don't need to do development with 40 people on the call, but thank you for sharing that problem. And actually, what I'd like to ask, one reason why I wanted to have you sort of share it in public is I wanted to ask others to weigh in if this is if the feature that Andy is talking about is something that would be useful to you. So just to tell you, in our previous experience, Elk Grove has used their tool for site selection, but they basically had a toggle on or off, and that was before the map existed. And so that's why that feature is not included in this release. But if it's something that's sort of broadly desirable, that's something we could certainly see if we could create that for you. So please weigh in if others think that having that interaction, like Andy was talking about, with a subcategory like this, like White Hill School, to actually have that reflected on the map.
This is Jeremiah Robbins with the City of Brisbane. We would be interested in a feature like that.
Okay.
I've been playing around with density, and if you tell it you have 0 units there and apply a maximum density, it won't change the shading either if you start at 0 units. Because like Andy, we don't want to fill in the map with a number of units. We want them to start at 0 and let them plug in the numbers they think they like there. But it doesn't seem to work unless you start with a number, even when using density.
Right. So and if you start at 0 and you're having an increase by percentage, it doesn't do anything. So
because
it's 0,
because
you have
it's
to start
saying
with a number.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And one way around that, just in terms of how the simulation works, is to specify an increment that's not a percentage. But you're still, I see your point though, Jeremiah, is that it still that isn't reflected with gradations of color on the map.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So at least one other person would get some use out of this. So my hunch is, once again, as some of you are sort of earlier, you're more upstream in terms of the process, and some of you are further downstream. And as you get closer to the parcel issue, my suspicion is that some of you might actually find additional utility for this. So, okay, I don't want to beat this one into the ground with this many people on board, but anything else that we noticed about this one? All right, let me just quickly go over to Arinda. The sim maker here has just said that they'd be happy for us to kind of do a quick little run through, more of an appreciation. They've done a really nice job getting their entry screens created. They've added one question, but they could use the map if they wish. Once again, Arinda is not that big of a place, so maybe that's not as relevant. And then it looks like they've started to get some maps in here, some shapes. And it looks like they've locked some items in here. In terms of existing, okay, I get it. Once again, a different way of putting it together. They're starting with existing capacity, they're showing what's there. That's actually interesting. And if the person who's the maker of this wants to oh, Winnie, I guess. Winnie, if you'd like to, I was told that you didn't want to say too much, but
no,
but if you want,
I'm welcome to.
Good. It's better than me bumbling through.
So I set this up a little bit different. I took a look at the examples that are available: Lafayette, Eastvale, Elk Grove, and it seemed like the way that they had set it up was they were just asking their residents these are the sites we want to rezone, but they didn't have anything about their existing capacity. So we wanted to present a more full picture saying, we're not starting at 0. We have this existing capacity. So that's what I put in there, and I've locked it since, that's existing. We're not changing those sites.
Right.
And then the pending project as well. That's a pending project we have. That's also locked because we don't want people to change that. And then downtown and everything below that is the sites that we're asking, do you want to rezone, and waiting for the mapping aspect for that. So there isn't any data for those right now. So I've mainly been playing around with existing and the pending projects and putting in the info and stuff like that.
Okay. I think that looks great. Now, having heard Andy just describe it, is this an example where you'd like it to interact the same way that that Andy was describing? So if we go up here to
yeah, if the shades would get darker, then yeah, I think that's something we would want
at the subcategory level, and not looking at but you are looking at density. Then you're not looking.
We are.
No, okay, so this actually works with existing functionality then.
Yeah.
Okay, so this one we're covered on this one. Good. All right. Anything else, Winnie, that you want to say just to help people kind of understand your thought process through this?
I would say just a FYI, if you're doing the entry screen, don't click the don't show me again, which is what I did, because then you can't preview it. And I had to ask Garrett and get to work around that. So just don't click that do not show me again button.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'll have to clear your cookies.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, you weren't the only one to actually have done that either. So it's just because sometimes it just pops up so quickly, and we're just kind of accustomed to just saying, I don't want to see this again. And it just saves within browsers. And a really easy workaround with that is that you can open the preview in an incognito window or a private window, and you can just hit refresh to see what the new changes are. So that's great. Good pro tip though, Winnie. I appreciate that. All right, anything else? So once again, sort of different approaches on the buffer. Andy had that different idea about what the Turner Center putting forward in terms of maybe those two are a wash and just different strategies. And I think they both make a lot of sense. But yeah, it looks good, Winnie. Thank you for sharing what you're doing. Now, do you have any feature requests? Anything that you wish the software could do that you're not currently seeing it able to do?
Not yet. I guess I had a question. I haven't played around with the exit screen yet, but is there a way to preview that?
Yes, you should just be able to click. Okay, so it's not letting you look at it right now because the default setting is saying that you must have balance. So this much must end here. There's actually you can click a box that says do not require a balanced budget. I think. Sorry, we're still using the financial terms for that one probably. But yes, you can. If you just click that box and then just before you launch it, just remember to click it back.
Got it.
Is that making sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, good. All right, sounds good. Well, anything else? Questions, comments about what your colleagues are doing? Okay, well, let's go back now to the agenda or to the PowerPoint. And I just want to say, you know, our team was sort of talking about this a little bit and sort of reflecting on the really successful uses that we've seen, including Elk Grove and Sutherlandshire that didn't use the map at all. And we're just sort of commenting that, you know, the geometries are really, they take up, they suck a lot of oxygen. They require a lot of care and feeding, and there's a lot of you know, complexity to it and complicatedness, and which is fine because complicated things are complicated. But we also just wanted to, you know, just remind people that there are some really good tools or really good ways of using this tool that don't use the maps at all, including, you know, the 3 major types that ABAG has supported us to provide you with, which is one that looks at type, which is like Sutherlandshire, where they're saying, should we build single family homes, duplexes, apartment buildings, et cetera. Density, that does use the map. That's like, I think a little bit similar what Winnie's doing and what Lafayette did. And then parcel, which is kind of where Andy was focusing. And so I just wanted to ask you all, I've just got a quick poll. When we asked this poll during the very first user meeting 4 or 5 sessions ago, you all said that you probably, I think there was a general sense that you might use all of those. But I want to just ask you, if you can just tell me, given your thinking right now, do you still think that you'll be using all three of these, or which, kind of how are you thinking about this? So if you wouldn't mind just indicating whether or not as you look at your plan, I mean, this is obviously something that, it's not going to be done in 2 months, but if you look at this whole process that you have, do you intend to be using, just the housing type, focus on areas, or parcel selection, and you can actually choose 1, 2, or 3 of these, 1 or all of them, 1, 2, or 3, or all of them. Just this will help us to continue to think about how to support you, but also maybe just a subtle reminder that some of the simpler versions, like the Sutherland Shire one, the developer, the planner from there, he thought that one was just terrific in terms of just letting the public know that, yeah, it's not going to be all single family homes. So I will close this in about 5 seconds. Looks like a good chunk of you have participated. So if you want to participate, go ahead and indicate what you've got. So I'll close this in 3, 2, and 1. And sharing the results. Okay, so we don't have a huge response, but it sounds like a good, 3 in 10 of you are still planning and doing that sort of housing type exercise. All of you are planning on focusing on the areas, so not at the parcel level, but at the area level. That's interesting to know. And then 8 in 10 of you are looking at the parcel selection like Elk Grove. So that's good. I think that all of these are that there's enough interest that all of these will continue to support what we would continue to support no matter what. But once again, this one is just really easy to do. These two get a little more complex, and the parcel selection doesn't necessarily have to have the map attached. Like Elk Grove had quite a bit of success, but once again, you can do that if you wish. So, all right, well, thank you for weighing in on that. Okay, let's look at, oh gosh, okay. Were you all looking at the results as I was talking about them?
No, it's still the each type is up.
Okay.
Oh, I'm seeing results on mine.
Okay, I guess for users who are not signed in as a host, were you able to see the results?
No.
You were not. Okay, so let's see.
There we go. Now
Okay, sorry. I thought I was sharing this. I'm getting used to Zoom surveys. Okay, so anyway, that's what I just discussed. So that's useful. Thank you. Okay, so now let's go on to just a couple of features. So okay, we've already done the workshopping and simulations. Dan, do you want to just say a little bit about where we are with the HES Balancing Act integration?
Yeah, they basically had a little trouble getting the new API into production. So so our part is done. We're just waiting on them to have that. And in the meantime, you can get in touch with them and they'll convert your shapes for you. They'll export things for you manually. So so that's your workaround for now.
Yeah, and so that should come soon. As I said, the software has been created. It's just I think it's probably a lot of firewall consideration, security consideration, trying to get that linkage from the HES system into to Balancing Act, but it's mostly done. And when we do have that done, we'll probably just make a quick, maybe 4 or 5 minute video that we'll just share with people, so we don't have to have another meeting for that. Okay, so now meeting mode. So meeting mode is a way for you to use Balancing Act in a face-to-face setting. Got a picture of some people here going through it in a group, which is just sort of fun and engaging. And once again, it's actually, it sort of tends toward helping public officials to use this as a leadership tool, because you can actually use it as a facilitation tool to sort of lead a conversation, conduct a conversation, let people sort of think about issues in different ways, talk with each other. We think it's actually a very valuable thing. Just some pictures of it. This is obviously a big room full of people using meeting mode. And so the idea here is that each table, you can set it up however you want, by tables or individuals. They have a special URL, and the results from just their interactions are displayed up on this screen up here. And so it looks something like this. This is actually from Lafayette. And so the idea is, instead of having the questions or the interactions down here, it actually just shows what people did, and then it shows the results, and then it displays it aggregated on a map. This is just a screenshot, so it can be used in face-to-face settings like the previous pictures. It can also be used in online settings like this, which we think are pretty cool. And so let me show you how to make these. And this is super easy to do. Let me just make sure I'm finding it though. I think we're over here, and I need to move my Zoom bar. And so if I go to my, this is just our sandbox account, and I'm going to go to, it has to be an activated session. So this is more complicated than it needs to be. But if I'm looking for an active session, I've got this one called Density Demo. I simply go over here to Meetings, and I say, I want to create a meeting. And we're going to say for ABAG user group. And then I'm going to choose, you won't have nearly this many to choose from, but I'm going to choose the one that I know is set up for this. And I'm going to say continue. And then it's going to give me a very simple screen. You really don't need to do anything here if you don't want to, other than just to save it. You can put a name on it if you wish. You can put a location if you want and a description, but you really don't need to worry about it too much. And then I'm going to save it. And so now I've got my for ABAG user group, which I misspelled, excuse me there. But now what I want to do is I want to show you, that there's basically two screens that you need to know about here. There's the public view and there's the facilitator view. So if you were to hold a meeting with 20 or 30 people, 40 people, whatever, it can be done with up to 500, you can open the public view, and then the simulation comes up. Very familiar, what we've been talking about all along. But then when you go down here to look at the interaction points, when you open it, it's slightly different. So this was the one that Garrett used, I think, in our very first user group meeting where he talked about Park Hill. This is actually Denver. This is where Garrett and I are from. And so what you can do here is you can increase it. You can interact with it. So I'm clicking it, and I'm increasing this quite a bit. And then area 1 is getting darker up here. But then it's got an additional button. It's got a submit category. And because this is real time, after somebody's interacted with whatever subcategories or interaction points you put within a category, they have to say submit. And then they get a nice little green check mark there. And then you can go through and you can kind of do whatever you want. You can add, subtract, however. And then you can either show this in real time or you can show it at the end. You can open the facilitator view. So the facilitator view is visually distinct. It's got sort of a bluish, tealish, greenish kind of background. And it shows the aggregated results of what everyone has done on the simulation. So it shows the aggregated density in terms of the opacity of the color of the shape. And then it also, when you open this up, it actually shows the action that I took. So I added 77 housing units on area 1. On number 2, I added 11. And so if there were additional users, if you were in a meeting and you would have given out that public link to 30 or 40 people, every time they click submit category, it's going to update their submission. And then on the facilitator screen, you can see the results of just those people and what they've done. And once again, it's just a really nice way to lead a conversation and to let people, allow you as experts to share more information about, why something, there may be some additional considerations with some actions that the group might be tending towards, et cetera. You can, use it to, people can sort of talk to each other. It's just really nice tool. So I really don't want to make it seem more complicated than it is. It's just that simple, but it's, facilitation. It's a facilitation tool. Facilitation is an art, so there's a lot there. But I just wanted to show you this tool because I think it could be very useful. So I'm going to stop there and just see if there's any questions quickly on this. Okay. Seeing
Chris, I have a
none.
question.
Yes, please.
So are you saying then, it sounds like you're implying that the workshop mode or meeting mode is the only way to see a real-time aggregate of people's submissions? Is that the case, or am I misunderstanding?
No, you're not. Real time, yes. So Balancing Act, it obviously it lives online, and probably its best benefit is that it can be used by people anytime, any place. Standing in a grocery line, et cetera. Those results are aggregated. Actually, Dan, maybe you want to give the technical answer. I think some of them are aggregated in real time, but then some are actually pulled overnight. Or actually, let's let Dan speak to this.
Yeah, the charts that Chris will show you here in a bit, if we have time, they're done overnight. So yes, you're right that if you want something real time, this is your best bet.
Yeah.
Great. That's super helpful. Thank you for clarifying, because I wasn't clear about that until just now. And so in guiding the Fairfax workshop on Saturday, I wasn't entirely sure if we were going to be using the normal simulation or workshop mode. And now I see that we have to use workshop mode if we want to show real-time aggregated submissions. So thank you for
Yeah,
helping.
yeah, and it's really designed for that. The reports that I'm going to show you in just a moment, they've got a little bit of a different purpose. They're very detailed, and you can drill down and so forth. They're yeah. Anyway, all right. Well, that's Rachel. That was actually a great segue into the next topic, which is analytics. So we give you lots of different ways of understanding analytics. Let me go to a screen that I've pulled up over here. We're actually looking at Elk Groves. This was from last spring, and so you know, you've got your tabs over here on the left. You'll just go to analytics. You'll choose the one that you want to look at. In this case, it's the Elk Grove 2021 housing element, and it gives you lots and lots of information. But once again, it washes, it builds the tables and the graphs overnight. So they had about 1,500 page views, about 8.5 minutes on site, and then they had 91 people who submitted. So just like Winnie was talking about, that most of you are going to have your simulation set up so that people can't submit unless they've actually met the RENA goal or met your housing goal. So what this refers to is only 91 out of these folks actually submitted, but they still went on. They still spent, you know, on average 8.5 minutes, and that's an awful lot of people to participate. But these are the ones that actually met the requirement. And you know, listening to the folks in Elk Grove, that was really important because they had a lot of people that were just sort of angry and only wanted to come and sort of partially, you know, indicate what they would do and what a balancing act does if you have that requirement. And once again, I recommend that you do. It requires them to show you how they would solve the problem. And so, so what Elk Grove did, I think, was they took note of all this, but these are the ones that they actually used in the report. Now, we do give you information on both. So let me just show you this this graphic. The yellow bars are these 91 people. The teal bars are the rest, of the 1492 minus the 91. And so as you can see, they kind of tend to, they trend in the same direction, but they're not always identical. Typically what we found is that people who were tasked with solving the problem, the entire problem, and meeting the goal, they actually choose larger values than the people that did not. And that trend holds here. So the gold bars are the people who submitted, teal bars are everybody else. And the way that we calculate that is every 30 seconds, we take a snapshot of what a user's done on the simulation. And if they submit, we replace the snapshot with the submitted values. If they just leave, we still show you the submitted values, or the values of those who didn't submit, and just let you weigh those as you wish. We also give you median and mode. So median is the midpoint, and then mode is the most popular selection, so that you can kind of tell, is there a small number of people that might be skewing the results. And you know, typically it doesn't seem like there really are. And all of these, you can adjust these as you wish. You can decide what to include and what not to include, and so forth. And then you can also download these as images or even as the data behind those if you wish. So that's what folks did. So Elk Grove, if you recall, their top level was a council district. So they've got Council District 1, Council District 2, Council District 3. That's where most of the housing was placed. And then 4 actually got a little bit of a negative in terms of the popular vote. And then this is what this was their final value in terms of the base allocation. So it didn't really change too much in terms of the buffer, but just a little bit of difference before and after. And then scrolling down, we let you drill down on each one of these by council district. But before we go there, I'm going to show you some additional things that are on this top page. We tell you which items were open the most, which items on both sides. We give you, just some sort of top lines. I'm not sure if this would actually find its way into your report. It's kind of just providing you with information. These are the results if somebody were to, if you did use that drop a pin feature. This shows you where everybody dropped their pin, which I think is a pretty cool thing, especially if you're in a little bit jurisdiction than Fairfax, maybe for Fairfax too, but in a larger jurisdiction, it's actually a really useful thing. And then down here, it just gives you some information about how they found your site. And this comes from Google Analytics, and so I'm really not going to say it's perfect. It's just kind of information that can inform what you're doing and how you're understanding the input. But then you also get down here, you get all the comments collected, and it's collected by the comment, And then it's got the item that they're commenting on. It shows you what they did, and it gives you the date. So really good information. And you're also able to download this as a CSV file. So very useful. Let me go up here quickly and show you how you can drill down. Let's just look at Council District 3. And then you can sort of see how it broke down for each council district. You get, this is probably going to be, this might be your most useful graph, which is to show where the, which parcels were selected by the most people, or the values that they came up with. This just tells you kind of the which info icons were clicked on the most. And then down here, you've got the comments. And then if you want to drill down on a specific site, you can go to site C5, for example, and you can get some additional information. So that's analytics. And it might be the case that as we get a little bit closer towards the end game that we want to do a little bit more work on this, but that's the basic overview. Does that make sense to folks?
I have a question. If you have if you do the meetings mode, does that information get compiled with the analytics for single users, or are they kept separate?
That's a really good question. And so the answer is that the answer is yes. So meeting mode can be pulled out. It also give you a CSV, which I can show you in just a moment. But as long as they submit, it's just like they're using it online by themselves. So yes, Jeremiah, absolutely, it does. It all gets blended in. Sound good? All right, now one thing I also want to show you is that you can also get a CSV. So for those of you who are numbers people, let's see, I'm going to go back to this one. If you like spreadsheets, you can simply go here and you can download the report. I think I've got the right one. And then it gives you a detailed, okay, sorry, I got the wrong one. But if I would have gotten the right one, it would have given me, let's see, it must be this, it's probably this one. Sorry. Yes, okay. So Jeremiah, to your point, you get all sorts of information about people. If they would have done it during a meeting, the name of the meeting modes session that you created would show up here. And then it just gives you in sort of tabular format, it gives you all the information. It gives you the demographic information. It tells you what each person did by person. If they made a comment, it shows up there. It gives you a ton of information. It even gives you back here, it gives you the longitude and latitude. So that's what you get in terms of information on the CSV and the analytics. So before I move on, I've got a couple more things to cover. Anything else by way of analytics at this point? One thing.
Just a quick follow-up that the analytics export information is also available real time. Like basically as the moderator, you can save that information and download it at the same time that you're displaying it to people if you should so need. There's no lag time.
So for the on the CSV?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, the CSV will be up to date. The charts and stuff are going to be updated nightly.
Yeah.
Okay, so even for meeting mode, we can't, if we wanted to show that chart screen share or something, the charts are not available to display for 24 hours, let's say.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, for meeting mode, you're going to want to focus on the public view and the facilitator view, and then there's a very limited results view at the end of it. But yeah, you don't want to open up your client console and be showing them the analytics data while you're doing that.
But Rachel, you're actually going to have all that information though. It's all going to be available on the facilitator view.
Right. It's just the graphs are a nice visual. That's what I was trying to get at. People like to see visuals of information and data, not the CSV file necessarily, but the graphs might be an interesting thing to show people as they're walking out, or email them to them same day or something. So I was just curious. It's not a make or break thing. It's just as I'm going into the Fairfax workshop on Saturday, it would be nice to know ahead of time what I can show them without having to wait to see what happens, you know? So it's fine.
It's a good idea, and we are considering some updates to the results that are shown publicly, and we'll keep that suggestion in mind when we get there.
Yeah, but Rachel, I can tell you,
Great,
I've
thank you.
done meeting mode numerous times, and this actually seems to satisfy people at the resident level pretty well. So if it doesn't, let us know, and once again, that might be something that we build. Okay, I want to show you
Okay,
impacts quickly. So we have the ability to add, it's like to add a secondary impact to a simulation. And so once again, you don't have to use this. It's probably not used that often, but I want to show you how to use it. So if I were to go over here, and just to give you an example of this, this is a sample that I created of a housing simulation. Didn't use a map because it wasn't really that necessary. But the idea here is that you've got something that we're all familiar with, which is the balance bar, and that shows where you are with regards to number of units versus goal. And then over here, there's a way to add a second box. And so this can be configured however you want. In this particular instance, it's configured by affordable housing units, and then you can describe what that is, number of homes, details. In this case, I put a picture of what affordable housing looks like in my neighborhood. And you can kind of do whatever you want. You could also, the state of Arizona uses this feature to show impact on climate, on tons of nitrous oxides that are produced based on budget decisions that are made below, based on investments. You could use it for equity in some way, although equity is a hard thing to quantify. But it's available for you. If you want to use it, you certainly can. So let me just show you quickly how to create that. And then let me show you how it works too. So what I've done is I've created the impact indicator, and then I've added it to just 2 interactions just to kind of show you how it could work. So in this one, I'm just going to start with this one down here. It's using our scenario question. So it just says, sample question, include the ARCO site. So it starts out at 0. And so it says, should this be included in the plan? Right now, we're at do not include. But you know what, if I said, what if we allowed duplexes? It looks like there's going to be a net of 8. Or if we do a 3-story apartment building, a net of 28. And so what I've done here is I've made a secondary math problem that says, okay, take this net number and multiply it. I'm going to say 50% of these are going to be affordable. And once again, that's a definitional issue too. But if I click on this one, I'm adding 8. This goes from 2 to go to 6. And if I actually am going to add 28 new units and I'm multiplying it times 0.5, or 50% of them are going to be affordable, it actually should give me quite a few more. So once again, just very simple, just a way of kind of showing this actually has an impact, not just on the total, it also has an impact up here. Now this one, I've set it up, I think, to multiply by 20%, I believe. I'm trying to remember. So as I increase it, and it's going up by pretty big increments, 55, I think, at each pop, it actually goes pretty quickly. And I did that because I wanted to show you how it works. So as you get closer to the goal, so on the back end, there's a place to set a goal, a target. I've set it up at 100. So as I get closer to that target of 100, it turns orange. It goes from red to orange. And then as it gets closer, it turns green once I've met it. So if you have sort of a second goal that you feel confident in, you can certainly do that. And I'm going to show you just quickly how to set that up. And I think that this is not going to be a super common use case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you a quick overview of how to create it. We'll give you a help article on it. And if you want to set it up, or if you need some help with it, you can just let us know and we will do that for you. So I think it's over here. So I'm going to edit this. So you'll have a tab on your back end that has impacts. And so this is the control panel for the simulation I just showed you. And it's actually pretty simple. So you create your impact by clicking on this, and then you edit it, and then you name it. So in this case, affordable housing units. And then this is going to be affordable, or a number of homes. And so you just type that in. You don't need to worry about the P stuff. And then this is that picture I showed you. And then down here, you put in your target. And then if you can do a suffix or a prefix. So in this case, it's units because it's housing units. And then once I've got that created, then I can go into the gear and I can choose my subcategory that I want to have this impact. So that top one, the one that multiplied pretty quickly using plus minus, That one, I was assuming that each of those new units, 20% would be affordable. So I put in a multiplier of 0.2. The second one, the smaller one, the ARCO site that had the scenario questions where you could choose to do duplexes or you could choose to do an apartment building. That one I was assuming at 0.5. And so that's how you set it up. So we're getting close to the end of time. So I wasn't going to spend too much time on the detail, but I did want to just check with you all to see what you thought about that, if that makes sense and so forth. Any questions on that? Okay.
Chris, can you remind us which jurisdictions have used that impact before?
You know,
That feature?
none. And I'll tell you that the problem with it is that it's really hard to quantify that second impact. And I think just like Andy was afraid that, you know, you might end up talking about the assumption instead of the actual substance. I think people have, you know, with good reason, they've just been reluctant to use it because, especially with something like equity that is really hard to quantify, people have been reluctant to sort of introduce a secondary equation. But if there is something solid, you know, like if you know that a particular site would yield, you know, X number of affordable units, I think it might be something that you might want to use. That answer your question, Rachel?
It does, yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. So just to by way of closing, you know, next steps in future support. So we're going to be providing ongoing support with how to use the features. We never want you to feel like you're not using a feature because you don't know how to use it. So contact us. Garrett is available for that. We showed you how to build a sim in other languages. That's, you know, it's complex. You know, if you want to talk through that, let us know, and you know, we'll do everything we can to help with that. And then those geometries, we're going to continue to work with ABAG to make that connection between HES and ABAG, but those are complex as well. And so we're going to work on the software side to make that as simple and straightforward as possible. ABAG has also made a standing offer. If you need help with your geometries, please go ahead and just ask them. And I think they gave you a Dropbox that you can actually enter a file and they'll convert it and so forth to help with that. And then we've also got some additional issues. And I wanted just to show you that some people have been talking about what's the end game. And I just want to quickly show you, and we'll share this with you. This is the plan that was submitted by the planning department in Elk Grove, and you can see what they did. And you know, they're once again, they were very happy with it. They used balancing arc support as a benchmark for what they included. They only included sites that had a 65% or more support level in balancing act. So I'm going to share this with you, but we're going to even have some opportunities coming up if you wish to sort of talk about how to use this. And we did a video or a webinar with Christopher Jordan from Elk Grove about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think we sent out the link to you, where he actually talks about how he used this to work through the planning commission and the council process. But one option that we have is to actually bring him on and talk to you all about how to do that. We do the same thing with Lafayette, and we could even bring in the planner from Australia if you're interested in that. So let me just see if I can make the polls work one more time here. And maybe I'm not very good at the polls, I'm realizing. Oh, there it is. Okay, this is for future learning. So I'm just gonna ask you one last question about future learning and support needs. So you should have it. And so the first question is, what topics do you want to learn more about? And you can select multiple. Second question is, how do you think this user group, how often do you think this user group should meet? Because this is the last scheduled meeting, but we sort of anticipated doing more. And then asking that question I asked about, would you be interested in hearing from jurisdictions that have used the software so far, and a little bit ahead of you guys. So please go ahead and answer those if you would. And let's see, I'll give it about another 10 seconds or so. Okay, I'll just close this in 3 seconds. So 3, 2, and 1. And sharing the results. It looks like I'm so glad to hear that. You all don't, most of you don't feel like you need to work more with geometries. That was really taking a lot of time, but I think we're on that one, even though it's complex. I love that most of you are interested in continuing to learn how to get the interaction you want, and that's something that we can help with. Outreach and communications, that's a valuable one, 50% of you there. Languages, other languages, okay, that's good. People feel like that's mostly handled, that's great. Using simulation results to write reports, make recommendations, okay, I think that's gonna be a really important one. And then other, anybody wants to chime in with what their other was, please feel free. And then it looks like there is some support every 2 weeks, once a month. So maybe somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks, we'll try to schedule another meeting to check in with you all and let you share what you're doing, and we can share any new developments on our end. And then also, would you be interested in hearing the experience of jurisdictions? It does look like there would be some interest in that. So thank you for providing that input. I think we're about done. Anybody have any closing thoughts, comments, requests? All right, well, we'll be in touch. If you should be getting emails from Garrett, follow-up emails. If you're not, check your spam folder. Occasionally, software systems will block domains, so make sure that we're whitelisted if you're not getting information from us, et cetera. But anyway, this has been a really nice, comprehensive tour of a new application for an established tool that is very complex, and we appreciate you all working through this with us, and we look forward to staying in touch with you. So thank you all.